Hey guys, so this is the Purpose Project, and we have Mike as a guest here. So Mike, can you please introduce yourself? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? And what do you like to do?
Yeah, sure. My name's Mike. I was born in Mount Holly, New Jersey. I grew up in Boise, Idaho. Um, I like to kind of get outdoors. I like skiing. I like watching hockey, watching football, playing hockey, mountain biking. Um, and
Whitewater rafting?
yeah, I like whitewater rafting. I like traveling. Um, any of those things really.
Mike is a certified badass.
I wish maybe those days are a bit over, but tried to have my fun back in the day, that's for sure.
Yeah, so Mike and I know each other from mental health treatment. I was at this place called Innercept, and Mike, right after I got there, actually, Mike was hired as a program manager for the intensive phase of the program.
That
Anyway,
is true.
so I understand you had some issues with pain meds around your college years. If you feel comfortable, what are some positives and negatives about that lifestyle, and what did you learn?
Yeah, well, in high school, I guess I was never I was never really afraid to try drugs, really, a little bit of marijuana here, maybe drink a few beers and uh maybe try some mushrooms, see what that's all about, that sort of thing. And then it was during what it was like 2007-ish to 2000, I'd say 10 or 11, kind of when that whole opiate pandemic or epidemic or whatever you want to call it in the US was really big, and doctors were just handing them out like candy. And
Jeez.
uh, so that was kind of the thing that came up, and kind of got into that, and made some pretty bad decisions regarding that. And obviously once you become addicted, you aren't it makes it really hard to be a good person. Really, you just
Yeah.
care about, how can I get
Yes.
money to get more pills or whatever it is that you're into. And so I kind of went down a deep dark hole there. um, and then after high school, I went to college, and at University of Idaho in Moscow. It was great. It was awesome. Um, but I didn't really feel like college was my thing. And I was just kind of doing it because that's, everyone says, oh, well, you have to go to college. And so I got into college. So I figured, what the heck? I got in, so I might as well see what it's all about. I met some awesome people there. I still have, friends, roommates from when I was in college that I still hang out with. They saw me, through the dark days of when I was really, really addicted. Um, and then basically from there, um, I one summer, in order to pay for college, because my parents, it's not that they didn't have money. I mean, they weren't wealthy, right? But
Right.
they did, they weren't about giving me any handouts. I mean, I think the only thing they paid for me when I was younger was to play hockey, and that was just because they thought that that would keep me out of trouble if I had a reason to stay in shape and a reason to show up to practice and work hard, and and have an athletic or physical outlet to let some energy out. So they paid for that, but they weren't going to pay for school. So I started wildland firefighting. I think I was like 19, maybe 20 when I
Once
did
again,
that.
certified badass.
Oh yeah, thanks, man. There's a lot of folks who do it, and it's a really rewarding job, and and you get to go see parts of the country um, that I never would have seen. You know, you're on top of these mountains that are God knows how tall. Some of them 6,000 feet, some of them even higher than that, and you get to see some really cool stuff that you don't ever get to see. I remember sitting um, on the side of a mountain, and what we did was they're called controlled burns. So you burn part of the green area, the part that hasn't been burned yet, in front of where the fire is going to go, because if it's already burned, the fire can't keep going. So you try to start a small fire to and control that small fire before the big fire gets there, and just keeps steamrolling. And I remember sitting on the side of a hill. It must have been 1 a.m. or midnight or so. And you
Mm.
know, we woke up at 5 or so that morning to start our shift, but we were burning, and somehow they trucked up like 20 pizzas, so we each got a pizza, and we're just sitting there watching this hillside burn. And
Oh my
you
gosh,
know,
bro.
we're just sitting there, nothing but our backpacks, our headlamps on, hadn't showered in God knows how long, maybe 5 7 days, and we're just sitting there so tired, want to go to sleep, but we know we got to sit and wait for this burn to stop, and that probably won't be for 2 3 hours or so before we can kind of lay down and get some sleep. And I'm eating some Papa John's pizza and just watching this. You know, it's almost like it's not real. And then you also are like thinking about, how do I describe this? Because it's one of those moments where you see something so cool, and it's almost like a scene from Lord of the Rings or something like that, where it's just so unbelievable that you're just like, how, you know, how do I describe this to my friends and my family? And um, so that's always one thing that I remember. And so yeah, I started firefighting to pay for college, and I ended up liking firefighting so much that I said, screw it to college. I dropped out after my junior year, or sophomore year, sorry, dropped out, did that, and tried to make a career out of that. And I did that for about 7 or 8 years, I believe,
Let me
off and on.
there for 1 second.
Sure.
So going back to your pain med days, did you ever OD?
No, but I saw somebody OD. Well, I didn't see them, but I was at a friend's house, and I didn't know the kid, but he was there, and you know, we all took some pills, and I can't remember what we were doing, probably playing video games or drinking or something. And I ended up going to a different party, and I came back in the morning, and there were cops all there at my buddy's apartment. And I, you know, walked up to my buddy, and I was like, what happened? And you know, they said that the dude that I didn't know that was there were only like four of us, five of us there, but he didn't wake up. They went and opened the door to the room and went in there, and he was blue. Um and yeah, and that didn't quite work. I actually got I know I actually got I was with a girl that got robbed we knew who did it. They set us up. She was selling some of her pain pills, and it was me, another dude, one of my friends in the back, and she was driving the car. And we pulled up in a Rite Aid, and she was, you know, texting this dude like, "Oh yeah, I'm here." All of a sudden, the dude rolls up or runs up to her side of the car door, um, opens it, hits her, snags the
Jeez.
pills, and I jump out, and I'm like, I was in fairly good shape, so I was like, all right, like I'm gonna have to throw down here real quick. And dude like stepped back, took a couple steps back, pulled a gun, and I just, you know, put my hands up, and I was like, fuck, like I can't, you know. And he took off running down the road, and it ended up being the kids who were trying to buy him. they wore a ski mask and everything like that, thinking, but I mean, it was pretty obvious. Like they were the only ones that knew we were going to be there and what we had. So it was pretty obvious that those were the kids that robbed us. I think we were like 18, maybe 17 at the time.
Yeah, wow. I was in a hospital. The reason why I asked is because I was in a hospital and this one girl, I'll never forget her name, Kelsey. She went to the bathroom and it was a little suspicious because she was in there for drug use and her boyfriend had just recently came to visit her. Apparently he gave her some fentanyl or something in the
Oh,
hospital without anybody like realizing,
yeah,
and she like OD'd.
man.
She
Yeah.
didn't die, unfortunately, but she, I mean, just like some really amazing people get sucked into the
Oh, yeah. Oh,
drug
yeah. I,
industry.
I remember one time I, took some pills at one of my friend's house or whatever. He gave me some or sold me some, or I don't remember what happened, but we took them and it was like 2 in the morning. And I was like, all right, man, well, after about an hour, I was like, all right, man, I'm going to head home. And I was living with my parents at the time and I was driving home and I got pulled over for speeding. And the cop was like, hey, are you on any drugs or drunk? And I'm like, no. And he, are you sure? Then all of a sudden he got a call and he looked at me and he said, all right, man, it's your lucky day. You're free to go. And he just took off. He ran
Oh
back to
my
his car. He
God.
must have got another call. But that's one of those moments in my life where I was like, that could have been not a good time.
You were under 18, you said?
Yeah, maybe I was either 18
Around
or
18.
17 around that age. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever, like, was there anybody in particular that you attribute like overcoming that, I don't want to say illness, but that habit?
Yeah, well, so it's I don't know if it would be I don't think it would be necessarily a person, but I think firefighting, I mean, you're you're out of, you're in the middle of nowhere for 14 to 21 days and obviously you don't have alcohol, you have no drugs, and so like it was like you you either get better or like you quit because you need your drugs so much. And so I was able to just kind of stop on my own. My withdrawals weren't all that crazy, and I mean, from what I hear, like they should have been, but they weren't all that crazy. Yeah, there was insomnia, there was like nausea, there was throwing up and stuff like that, but it wasn't like you see in the movies or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, we were doing like oxys and Percocets, and there were these things. I don't think they make them anymore, but um, they were called Opanas, and they were like that's like what fentanyl was before there was fentanyl. Really,
Yeah.
they were pretty gnarly, but yeah.
So is there anything in particular you learned from hustling in the drug industry?
Well, yeah, I'm. It's
If you feel comfortable, obviously.
yeah. I mean, I have no problem talking about anything. Long story short, kind of right after my painkiller days, I tried Molly for the first time. Got into that. Ended up one of my buddies was like had a significant amount and a hookup for a significant amount, and so they were all around. No matter what, you could get them. I mean, it was just a phone call away or whatever. So, um, ended up selling that, starting to sell Molly back in Boise, and also painkillers and things like that, with a group of kids that I knew. And one of the buddy who got me into it was actually one of my buddies that I played hockey with. He was a really talented hockey player, honestly, and so he kind of got me into it, and he went down the dark path too, that dark path. And um, I just remember being at parties and having a backpack with over 1,000 or so points of Molly in it, and then boom, cops show up and going out the window onto the roof and jumping off the roof into the backyard and just scattering and all that, the stress, and somehow I never got caught. I think I went back to college for a year or a semester, and then while I was back at college, they ended up getting a sting operation. My friends got a sting operation on them, and they all went to jail for several years for that. Um, and that was pretty scary. And so after that, it was just kind of like, all right, you only have so many times where you're going to get lucky, and um, kind of moved past that. But it was a wild time, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, that sounds definitely really intense,
Yeah, yeah,
to say the least.
definitely. And going looking back on it, it was almost like it was a mixture of like being young and free and just being like, oh, this will be fine, it's not a big deal. And also like, I don't, maybe it was like almost lack of self-esteem, like thinking, oh, I'm never gonna amount to much, so what does it matter if I do this? At least I can have fun while,
Yeah.
before I either die or go to jail or whatever it is. At least I can have fun on this planet before
Hmm.
that.
Are you religious or spiritual?
um i'm not re- I'm not religious, but I definitely it's I'm definitely spiritual, or there's something going on to where we didn't just form from nothing. I don't think
Mm.
that, but I don't know what to call it. I guess I should say
Yeah.
there's definitely energy. There's definitely vibes. There's definitely almost it's almost like a wave. Like just because you're a bad person at one point in your life or you're down doesn't mean that like in a year or two you can't be a good person, and then maybe you dip back down. And it's almost like the heartbeat of life, I would say.
Yeah. It's philosophical.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd say the same. I'd say I'm probably spiritual, not religious, but yeah. So do you
It's just so hard for me to either, I don't know how many religions there are on earth, but either they're all the same and they don't realize it, or if religion is true, only one of them can be true, right? So that
right?
makes it hard. Either only one of them is right, or they're all actually the same thing and they don't realize it. So
Mhm.
it's kind of tough.
A lot of, I think, like fundamental similarities between a lot of the religions, which includes like love and forgiveness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, it's wild. Not to get political. I don't care to talk about politics too much, but just thinking about how even kids your age or guys your age, how they grew up in a way different time than when I grew up. I mean, I've other than government class and history class, I didn't think about politics. I didn't, it was like when I was in high school, it was just like, well, it is when I'm 30, maybe I'll understand it, or all this and that. But it just seems like kids these days are, you see on Instagram and you see some like 14-year-old kid talking about Donald Trump or Biden or Kamala Harris, and it's just like, wow, like they're, it's being shoved down their throats, or they're just way more aware and um, connected or uh, into that than me and my friends and my classmates were.
Right. You're definitely seeing the duality of like
Yeah.
the different sides clashing.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like,
I'm the same as you. I don't really like talking about
right. Well, and it's like
pop.
if somebody were to ask me if I was a Democrat or Republican, I'd say, well, I own guns and I don't think that marijuana should be illegal. So what I don't know what I don't have a home, I guess. I don't have a place because no party believes the same things as me, I guess.
Right. So I guess going back a step, do you plan on finishing college?
Oh man, I, I love the idea of it. I hate how they run it, and I hate how much money that it costs, and how I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was some, a doctorate of psychology that was talking on this podcast, and he ended up being like, it's funny, like when you're young, you like think that these teachers and these like government officials and these lawyers, like they're just like uniquely intelligent and they understand more than you. And then when you grow up, you're like, everyone they're bullshitting it. Everyone's bullshitting it. And I kind of thought about it, and that resonated with me, that like, my college professors that I had, they were no smarter than me. They didn't know any more than me. They just knew the syllabus and knew how they were going to present it. And so everyone just thinks like, oh, what I'm being taught here is 100% the truth. And, you know, even in math, like there's more than one way to do things. And to be honest, I wish that college was not so much like a privilege thing, for those that can financially afford it, and more like, um, more philosophical, more Socratic method, like back in Rome when people would just sit around and they would discuss things, um, and and get their ideas from that, and play devil's advocate and try to figure things out. And it wasn't this like split between. Um, it's almost like people with college degrees kind of like have their nose up in the air, um, towards people that don't. And I think that some of the smartest people that I've met haven't had a college degree. And it's funny, a lot of my friends from high school, when I talk to them now, they all just assume that I have a degree. So they're like, oh, it's, shouldn't be hard for you to find a job, or like, oh, you'll be, you're doing all right. What did you major in? And I was like, oh, I don't have a degree. And it's almost like, oh, and it's like, I don't see it that way. I wish it was more. I wish that you didn't have to go to an establishment and pay them a certain amount of money for a piece of paper that says that you at one point in time took all of these classes. Now, whether you still know that 10 years later is a different thing. Uh, but it just seems very financially inclined to, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like they're just trying to make money. And I think that that's where a lot of things have gone wrong. Don't get me wrong. I like the idea of capitalism, um, free market, things like that. But I think everyone can agree now, especially after, everything that's been going on, that it seems like, being when you're in it for the profit, when a company's main goal is to make a profit, it makes it so they don't need to make the best possible product or service. They just need to make the best product, or a good product that is able to sell. Nobody's trying to make a car that will never break down, because then you don't buy another car, right?
Yeah, no, I think the system definitely could be improved to say the least.
Right.
I was listening to this guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said basically that if your parents are willing to pay for college, go to college. But if they're not, try to seek like an alternative path just because it's like you said, it's so expensive and
Right.
but
Well, and I saw, and not to get political, which it really isn't political, but he's tied into politics now. But I saw that Elon Musk put out some thing saying, "Hey, if you're a good coder, send us, um, you know, your best coding project. I don't care where you went to college. I don't care if you didn't go to college. I don't care where you worked." And I think that's kind of a, regardless of how you feel about Elon, I thought that was kind of cool that like he
yeah,
just wants the best person. He doesn't care if they went to Harvard or worked at Google, or but if they're the best person for the job, regardless of who claim what, if they have a piece of paper saying they are. I thought that was kind of a pretty cool turning point. We'll see.
yeah, so just moving on. What are you up to nowadays? How do you spend your time? Do you have kids and how important to you is family?
All right, so well, I actually was fired from a job in October of this year, um, which that, I mean, we could go into that story if you'd like. Um,
It's all right.
Basically, after Intercept, I worked as a program manager there, as Will already mentioned. I left Intercept. I wasn't exactly happy with the way it it seemed like a big money grab to me. Intercept did, and it
Yeah,
was that's just my opinion. I'm not trying to you know shoot the company down or whatever. They did what they had to do, I guess, or what they thought was the best option for everything. But it felt to me like it was a money grab, and they were paying people as little as possible and having as minimum staff as they could, while making sure that there were as many residents as possible, and as many people to be billed money each month. And it I just had had enough of it. I left there. I went to another company, um, that they work with young adolescent males, and they only have like 8 residents at a time, and they live there. And so it was like, okay, they're not just trying to cram um, the beds. So I went there, worked there for about a year, and then Michelle, who from Innercept. She was a therapist there. She started her own company called Serene Integrative. And she approached me and she said, "Hey, I want you to come and build a mentoring program, um, and help me build this company." And I said, "Sure." Um, and then after about a year and a half or so, um, long story short, without, I don't want to necessarily speak badly. I wasn't very impressed with how she handled it. I will say that. But she ended up hiring a lot of her family. I think I was managing her. Her sister was her HR. Her dad was her director of operations or COO. Her sister's husband was working under me, and then her sister's son was also working under me, and they had no medical or no mental health experience, and weren't really there for the best reasons. I don't think they were there for the paycheck and to be, know that they're working with their family and their family would always have their back. Um, and I mentioned that, multiple times to Michelle. Also mentioned that maybe they were not being so truthful to the insurances that they were billing, and there may or may not be fraud going on there. I don't know, but I thought maybe there could be. And then about a week later, I was fired. Well, I guess my position was terminated. They quote unquote no longer needed my position, and were letting me go. So um, since then, I've been looking, kind of job hunting, and then I did some soul searching and realized that I'm not just going to take a job just to take a job. So I started. One of my friends hasn't had a job in 3 years. He just day trades, and so he's been teaching me how to day trade stock options. Um, Generally, the S&P 500 or the SPY, which is the ETF of the S&P 500, and so getting into that, learning. I've made money, I've lost money. It's so far so good, but that's kind of what I'm doing now.
Yes, man.
Yeah, and just kind of, it sooner or later, it just kind of sucks to work for somebody else, to be honest. And sooner or later, in any company, you're going to have to do things that maybe you don't agree with, or you leave that company. And so I'm kind of in a spot where I'm like, do I even want to find another job? And if I do, I want it to be a perfect job that I want, no settling, and so kind of doing some soul searching in that realm right now.
Yeah, so I guess to close it out, if there's one thing or multiple things that you'd recommend to somebody who's struggling with their mental health or physical health, what would that be?
Man, um, get outside. Go out in nature. That was one thing that I tried to bring to Innercept. Um, was anytime that I could, anytime I had to work like a holiday like Thanksgiving, like let's get out, let's get everybody out and go play flag football, or go for a hike, or go for a run, or go skiing. Just get out there, and um, you don't have to be the best skier, hiker, or runner. I mean, I hated running when I was young, and now I like it. I need to get back into it, but stay active. Find a hobby, find something that interests you. Um, Hang out with friends. I mean, and people say like only, don't be around bad influences, but I think that I think that's kind of a messed up thing to say, because I think that if somebody that you are friends with and you care about is struggling, I think that maybe you should be around them. Yeah, obviously, make good choices for yourself. If they're doing drugs or whatever, don't keep it, don't get involved in that. But I mean, be there for them. Don't just, up and leave and let them go down that path, because it's you figure out who your real friends are when you do, and uh,
Right.
you always remember the people that never gave up on you. So
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, that's about all the time we have left for this podcast. I'd love to do another one with you sometime down the line.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
for sure. That's awesome. I'm glad you're starting this up. And
yeah.
what platform uh do you stream it on?
So far, just YouTube, but possibly
YouTube.
Spotify or possibly SoundCloud as well.
Okay, right on. Awesome, man. Well, best of luck to you, and um, it's awesome to see you. Being proactive. That's always been kind of something that I've admired about you, is how proactive you are, and always trying to find um, something to do, or some way to get involved with something that you feel passionately about. So it's awesome to see you sticking to it, man.
Appreciate you, man. Alrighty, guys. We'll catch you in the next podcast. Peace.